So yeah, I'm Vadim. That's my talk, and it's gonna be that's an official cover, and this like little like a design touch. It's actually animated. So yeah, I spent most of the time looking for a cover for this talk, and then slapped everything else together. But no, seriously. This is one of my favorite topics, CSS. So as you can tell, as you will be able to tell later, I'm very passionate about. So if you have any questions around that, feel free to ask me. So yeah, who am I? Yeah, I work at Mozilla. I'm a technical writer. I spent most of my career as a front-end engineer in many different roles. So I've been around for many years. My back hurts and all that. So yeah, but yeah, it's good to be back to a company. I joined Mozilla a couple of years ago. It's good to be back to a company that like develops a browser. I used to work for Opera browser for a while as a dev role. But now I work not on Firefox or anything like that. I work on MDN. So it's like everyday tool for developers. Who here uses MDN? That's good. Come talk to me later if you want, if you're using something else for your documentation, for your everyday needs. If you're curious about like web platform, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, SVG, whatever. I'm curious to know. So, oh no, just a sec. I need to update something. Yes, that would be correct. And yeah, MDN actually turned 20 years last month. So like we've been around. I've been around for around 20 years for my like front-end career as well. So we're okay. I just realized. Okay, I'm that old. Anyway, we recently also launched the redesign for MDN, and if you noticed, it's a little different. Our developer teams borrowed me for a few months to work on some code as well. So I'm not just writing stuff, but sometimes writing code, which is kind of exciting. So yeah, that's enough about me and my project. I'm here to talk about performance, and performance can be approached from different angles. We've seen today people talking about performance from like framework perspective, like how to optimize like internal parts of a framework to make it go faster. And this is like very high level. Today I'm going to talk about more a bit like closer to web platform, closer to browsers. And even at this level, performance can be approached at many different ways. For example, like we talked about JavaScript performance, and we talk about it a lot because it's very important. You can even talk about performance from HTML perspective, because like the way you include resources on your web pages, like placement in a header or in the body of your page, also it depends on that very much as well. But today I would like to focus on CSS, and one of the discoveries I made accidentally while just digging inside of like some websites on how CSS works and how we might be able to improve CSS performance a little bit better. And maybe you won't be able to like just take it and use it in your project, but it might add to your understanding of how CSS rendering and networking works, and it might be useful for you. So anyway, so we're trying today to speed up CSS loading, and we use CSS in different ways in our project. So sometimes it's just plain CSS. We have a bunch of imports. Sometimes it's just JavaScript. We often import CSS files in our JavaScript like that, though it's not like the actual syntax. Our bundlers like this and that and all of that and many more, they take those CSS file and they just do something. And we have no idea what is going on, and we often have no idea how they're loaded and like what's the performance hit from all those styles that we write. So I think it's I hope I'll shed some light on this in this talk. But also, it's not just the way we write CSS and the way it goes to browsers, but also the approach we use for styling. Because in modern websites and applications, you often have not just the desktop, but also like mobile, tablet. So we need to do some adaptation. And it also can affect our CSS performance. For example, we often write mobile first. So we write something like header, color, tomato, and then we write something if the width of the window is more than 768 pixels, then the color is plum. And if it's even bigger, then the color is wheat. So it's a mobile-first approach. So you care about, by default, it's mobile, then it goes to tablet, and then we write another condition for desktop. Sometimes it's the other way around. We write some defaults for desktop, and then when window gets narrower, we adjust our styles. It's not as simple as it looks on this particular slide, because we usually have a lot of styles. We usually have a lot of different blocks of code that dependent on the window width, and that makes sense on mobile, on touch devices, and doesn't make sense on desktop. That's why we mix and match those approaches sometimes. Sometimes it's mobile first and desktop first in certain cases. But some of you maybe write CSS like that. It's also like an adaptive approach. I don't know. Maybe it's your jam, but it's not my thing to write CSS like that. But it's also an adaptive approach. And as far as I understand, Tailwind uses a mobile first approach. So yeah, that's the way you do it in Tailwind. But when we combine all of that into our like index CSS that actually loaded on a web page, it becomes like the index CSS. Because, for example, I'm just taking my phone, loading a website. This conference is a website, and I'm getting some experience. But it's just my phone. I don't need like tablet styles. I don't need desktop styles. I don't need everything else that it's not there. It's just my little device, and why you're throwing everything at me at the same time. So it doesn't make sense. I mean, both from JavaScript and CSS performance, but here we're talking about CSS mostly. And then for that and for many other reasons, our CSS becomes much slower. And why is it so? Because like there's a thing about CSS that it's like render blocking. It means if you have all your HTML on your web page and your CSS is still loading, browsers wait. They even if they have like half of your CSS, even if they have like 99.9% of your CSS, browsers are still waiting. And if you have CSS in JS, so if your HTML loads JavaScript first, and then that JavaScript only then injects your CSS in your web page, like it's just game over, and it's like nothing's going to help you, really. Like you'll have to optimize heavily your JavaScript performance. So it's better, like the first lesson from that, it's better to extract your CSS into actual CSS files and include to your HTML page, because this way browser will learn about those files earlier, and it will be able to start rendering your web page. But remember, CSS is render blocking. So until all CSS is loaded, there's nothing to draw, because the last line CSS can override the first line of CSS. Like it's like that. Apart from situations when it's not render blocking, and this is the actual like source of this talk. So I stumbled upon a website. I really like looking at what gov.uk does. They have really nice design system. They care about performance, accessibility, and all that. So every time I want to get some inspiration, I go there. They're really good at what they do. And I just went there one day looking for something, and I just stumbled upon like their main web page, and I thought, oh, I should see how it works from like CSS loading perspective. I was curious. So they have like 400. They had, I think it's different now, but anyway, it's like maybe like a year ago. It happened around a year ago, maybe earlier. He had 445 kilobytes of CSS, which is okay. like too much to my tasting, but maybe they were trying to load everything on their main page, so it will be cached for the next pages. And these were the actual CSS files they were including, and like 4 of them, some of them like bigger, some of them smaller, all like hashed. The file names are hashed, so like it's good for caching and all that. But I noticed that only 2 of them were render blocking. So browser would wait for the first and the third, and then render. And browser wouldn't care about the second and the fourth for some reason. I saw it in the network panel, and I realized, oh, there's something wrong here. And I started to dig and realized that they included media print to those linked files. And non-matching resources. So when browsers parse your HTML, they look for resources needed to render this page. And when they see CSS files, they become eager to download them, because without CSS, there's nothing to draw. But when they realize that this file is not relevant for the current media, so for example, you're not printing, you're looking at the screen, right? So if it's media print, then I don't need those files, decide browsers. And we would think that they just don't load those files, but actually browsers load all CSS files they can find, but the ones with media not matching the current environment are not render blocking. So they also load it, but they're kind of lazy loaded, or so. We can call it like lazy loading, because they're not relevant. But the moment you try to print this website, they are already there because they were loaded in a background. That was interesting thing to find, and then I remembered, yes, it actually makes sense, because there's an approach to lazy loading when you're loading your critical CSS and you're marking your less important CSS as print, and then you can add a little onload event listener, and then change media once the file is loaded. So it's a really old approach, and I've seen it like maybe 10 or maybe more years ago, and I realized that, oh, so these things actually work. So it was easy to remember, because like these days we don't probably need to like optimize our performance that hard for additional CSS, but when it comes to like much bigger CSS bundles, maybe it makes more sense. And the one thing I changed in this snippet, that was the really old one. You can actually write not print, because it doesn't make sense if you're lazy loading, because it's not print. It doesn't make sense to me. So you can actually write not all, because it's just a media. That's how media queries work. You can write all or not all. You can negate it like that. So yeah, and I decided to build a little website to test this approach. And that's what this website looks. So on desktop it's like purple and desktop. On tablet it's like green and tablet. On mobile it's like narrow, tomato, and there's mobile word. So you see this website throughout the talk. And I combined all my CSS into a single old CSS file just to test the approach. So there was like basic styles like HTML, body, height, blah blah blah. And then I included in the same file, it was a long file with some adaptive media queries. So if the screen is narrower, if the screen is like somewhere in the middle, if the screen is somewhere above like a desktop breakpoint, I would change some colors, images, etc., etc. So I created this website and loaded it in Performance Profiler. This is Chrome DevTools. There are performance profilers available in Safari and Firefox. They look a little different, so I'm using the one that's probably familiar to you. This is from Chrome. If you open like DevTools and go to Performance panel, that's what we see. So here. If we see like this is our HTML page loading, And this is where browser parses this HTML page, and it realizes, oh, there's a CSS file. And it starts loading this CSS file, and once it's loaded, something is drawn. That was mobile version. And that was tablet version, that was desktop version. So in all, like when you have all your styles combined in a single file, it doesn't matter what's inside, browser wait until the whole file is loaded, until it starts rendering. That's the harsh reality. So so if you have a lot of base 64 PNGs, SVGs, fonts inlined in your CSS, it hurts your performance a lot. So be careful. Make sure your CSS, make sure your resources are external to your CSS, so they can just be loaded. This is much more important than a few more requests for resources. So let me actually show you how this works. So this is the actual page. Let me stop that. So this is a profiler. You go to Performance in DevTools. I hope you can see this. And you press Command-Shift-E on Mac, and it starts profiling. And in this particular case, I slowed it down and also disabled caching. So, yep, once the main page is stopped, we can stop this thing, hide a few panels that always get in the way, and then open Network and Frames. And as you can see, yep, we wait for all, and then our all CSS is loaded, and only, okay, I should probably do it like that. Yes, so once it's loaded, only then rendering happens. So yeah, the same thing I showed you on a screenshot, but now you know how to use this tool. So I'm recommending you to get to know this tool better. Anyway, there's nothing interesting here so far, at least for me. Maybe you've learned something new. But then at this point, I thought, what if? By the way, do you know this comic? What if? XKCD. Do you know XKCD? Comic. So there's a series called What If, and people ask Randall Munroe, the author of this comic, some stupid questions. Something like, what if you throw like a ball with the speed of light, what's going to happen? And then almost every comic ends up with some nuclear explosion, because like when speed of light is involved, like it's problematic, to say the least. So I'm recommending this What If series to you. There are some books and just online comics. I think he also launched a YouTube channel. It wasn't a sponsored section, but I really enjoyed this one. Anyway, so I thought, what if? So remember this website. So it's like it's desktop, tablet, and mobile. What if, I thought, I split this all.css into multiple files? So it's like base. I specifically made the mobile, tablet, and desktop gradually bigger by including some heavy PNG base 64 graphics just to show that they can be bigger sometimes, and it's easier to analyze it like that. So if I split those and include them separately, maybe it will like load faster somehow because there are media queries inside and browser will analyze those. Nope, not going to work. But what if I inside of those media attributes I put something like width less than 700, and like I will move my media queries outside of my CSS and put it in HTML. Maybe in this case, browser will realize, okay, I need just base CSS and mobile CSS, but I don't need tablet and desktop. Like, I'm not going to load those. So, no, browsers just ignored me, and like we can look at it here. So these are on the slides, but I can actually. I'll show you later the actual demos. So yeah, doesn't matter what we do, browsers load. So desktop, 4 files loaded. Tablet, 4 files loaded. Mobile, 4 files loaded. So like, what's the point? I'm sorry, my experiment failed. My talk doesn't make a lot of sense. But then, I realized that it actually works, but in a different manner, a different way than I expected. So this is desktop. This is how this page is loaded when I split multiple files and include them with media attributes with some media expressions inside. So they load in parallel, which is good, bad, like doesn't matter in this case. And once the desktop is this desktop CSS file is loaded, rendering happens. When we look at the tablet, base is loaded, tablet is loaded, boom. We don't wait for a second. Rendering happens. And then desktop can load in the background. And yeah, on mobile, it's even better. Base, mobile, boom, we have rendering. The tablet and desktop files are not relevant here. They're like print. They're not print, they're still screen, but they're not relevant. And this is something I just want to show you in real life because, again, I think it's good to be able to use those tools for your much more complicated cases because this is just a simple dumb web page. So this is adaptive one. Let me close these DevTools and open another one. So yeah, as you can probably see, I throttle my network here, and I also disabled network cache. So make sure you do that, otherwise you'll get the results won't be very useful. So I press Command-Shift-E and wait for desktop. No, it's like throttled to like 3G speeds, which you probably still can get in modern CDs because like when network is congested. So yeah, closing few panels. They're so annoying. I don't know how to ask DevTools to stop showing me those if I like did it last time. So yeah, that was relatively simple. So we waited until desktop file and we rendered, but it was too late because like mobile and tablet were already loaded. So let's make a window smaller, like to mobile width, and do the same thing again. So these were not just pictures. This is actually happening. So trust me. I kind of know what I'm doing. Yes, stop. We can stop profiling. Close those annoying things because I don't need them. I should ask DevTools engineers to fix this at some point. Anyway, you see, base CSS, mobile CSS, bam, we have rendering happening here. And we're not waiting for tablet and desktop. And that was really nice thing to learn. Like it's not a specific of a certain like framework or JavaScript library. It's just the way browsers work, and all of them work like that. So everywhere, like Chrome, Firefox, and Safari, they all do the same thing. And I couldn't find a place in a spec that would say like, okay, do this, but don't do that. They just at some point they agreed that it would make sense to not load irrelevant CSS or load but with lower priority. And this is the actual the thing here. I want to show you this once for a second, but in a network panel. So when we look at our resources in the network panel, let me I guess reload it for a second. Yes. Yes. So you saw where the page is rendered, but it's still loading something, those extra files. So yeah, when we look at the network panel, there are some, like there's a table with certain columns, but it's not all. You can actually turn on many different and useful stuff in this. And the one that you need is called priority. And if you look at the priority, the first two files, base CSS and mobile CSS, were loaded with the highest priority. The next two were loaded with lower priority, and this is how you can tell whether browsers think that your resources are high priority or low priority. And this is, again, like it's for browsers to decide. There's no spec for that, but all browsers do that anyway. That was really good news, and a good thing to discover. So yeah, this is the Firefox profiler, just a proof. It works the same way. It waits for 2 files, and then, bam, rendering happening. The same goes in Safari profile. There are less capable, I would say, Safari profile than Firefox and the Chrome ones, but you can still see the effect. And what's interesting that in Firefox and Chrome case, it's possible to slow down your web page to see the effect better, because sometimes like your web page is too small and too performant. I wish. But still, it happens sometimes. Like your local network is way too quick, like localhost server is like almost immediate. And there's a nice NPM package called slow static server. It's basically what it says. Like it's very slow static server. You launch it and you can specify the speed. And sometimes your tools don't support slowing down or like throttling traffic. So I would recommend using this one. It's very simple, like no hot reloading or anything. Just like it slows you down when you need it. When you need it. What's interesting? The same syntax doesn't work in CSS the same way. So you can actually import files conditionally. Hence the title of this talk. Like you can load those files conditionally, but it's not going to work the same way. It's not going to affect performance or like priorities of network performance for some reason. There is a bug in Chromium repository. There's a bug in Firefox repository. I should probably file one for Safari, because like you would expect the same behavior in HTML and in CSS, but it doesn't work like that. But also when you have imports inside of your CSS, it's also not very good for performance, because browsers only learn about your extra CSS files when they download the first file. So like you're creating waterfall. It's better to put all your CSS in the head of your HTML document, and only then browsers can learn in advance what to load. But there's more. It's not about just adaptive stuff. Like if you have some 2x, 3x, 5x, or like high resolution graphics, you can actually load CSS with lower quality graphic first as high priority, and then only if browser needs it. Or the same for animation. Like if you have like very heavy animation, lots of keyframes, lots of maybe some even inline resources, which is not always a good idea, but sometimes you need that. You can also like postpone it and put it in separate files. And and there's another really good use case for that, for light and dark themes. That's what I do on my website, and I've seen other people do that, something similar as well. That's very loud train. That's what I do on my website. I have light CSS, dark CSS, and these 2 files contain like just variables. And I have my own my main CSS file with everything else. And browsers can actually choose which file to load based on my current settings of my like phone, desktop, or whatever I'm opening this web page. So they will load, for example, by default, it's in the middle of the day. They will load style light CSS with highest priority, and they will put the dark CSS in a backlog. Basically, they will load it in lowest priority when they have time. Because I don't need it right now, because based on my description in HTML, it's just not relevant. So the first and the third one will be high priority, the middle one will be lower priority, and vice versa. So but it will still be loaded. If the website is ready and I click like theme switcher, it will happen immediately because it's loaded. That's one of the reasons why browsers load all CSS files, because we can resize our windows, we can press switchers, we can change our preferences, and it makes sense to have website or your web app ready for everything. That's why it's not just blocking loading, it's just deprioritizing. And I wrote an article on that about this like particular use case for dark and light theme switching. So if you're curious, take a photo. What about tools? Like, it's a nice approach. We can probably use it to optimize our CSS. Are there any tools available to make it easier for us when we're writing our like high-level framework and bundler code? Well, I could find only two. That are like more or less relevant. The one is a post CSS plugin that can actually split your once your bundler, once your whatever you're using to combine all your CSS into a single file, for example, is ready. It can go through that and split those. Split this big file into smaller chunks based on the media queries they use. So you will have something like base mobile desktop tablet CSS, for example. The CSS media splitter is similar. It's not a post CSS plugin, but it's a little like ecosystem of different things. But what's funny, all of them in their readmes on GitHub have code similar to this, and they're suggesting that you would measure the width of your window, and only then you will create an element and include and blah, blah, blah. Like, they have no idea how browsers work. They want you to do this manually. This is so weird. I don't know, like, if window is bigger, then load this file. I mean, yes, but no. At the same time, like if I resize my window, you don't have time to load and parse and re-render this file. So it probably makes sense to load all the CSS you have. I mean, make sure it's like it's not huge. Make sure it's optimized and like 3-shaked. I mean, if there's a 3-shaken in CSS, probably not. Yeah, so this is not a very good approach, I would say. But if it's something like you don't ever need, but why would you include it then? But anyway, so there are some tools you can use to that, and but they don't use this particular approach with higher and lower priority CSS loading. So it's up to you to apply it, or maybe just learn how to test it in your own code. And I actually wrote an article based on this talk at some point, conditional adaptive CSS. And again, if you wanna read the same thing but in words or maybe with some extra details, again, snap a quick picture and a QR code and a few more recommendations as well. And yeah, this is just my main website if you're interested. But also, yep, sorry. You can take this photo. But also, speaking of performance from different perspective, there's a really good talk by Harry Roberts about HTML performance, like the way you can organize your just head element, and there's QR code, of course. The way you can organize your head element of your web page or web app in the most performant way, and you can actually win a lot of performance by using proper order of elements and not misusing some of those. So very, very, very good talk. But also in Amsterdam there will be a conference called Performance Now in October. I highly recommend. Like, you're here, you're listening about CSS performance, so you might as well go there. And another QR code. I like those. So yeah, this is basically it, and another nice, slightly animated picture for you. Thank you.